Greetings, everyone. I'm Dan Blair. This is Ashley Huffman. Really great to be here. We've got an amazing talk to bring to you today. Let me get to here.
I'm happy to talk to you about strategic partnerships and marketing at Titan Haptics.
Please don't ask me any technical questions.
Ask me anything you want. I'll give you an answer even if I don't know.
So we've got a brief intro, but Dan, you're the CTO of BSD XR. You create amazing immersive experiences. You work with industry. You work with organizations. Really awesome stuff. If you haven't heard of Titan Haptics, my company makes haptic technologies, including motors, and we work with companies to integrate it into their products. So, gaming controllers, cars, all that fun stuff. In terms of the goal for today, we are really excited about immersive experiences and bringing the crazy ideas from creative folks into real life. And Dan and I had the opportunity to work together on something that was a fun concept, turned into a challenge, turned into something that is a tangible, useful thing for the future. And we want to inspire you with what we've created to, maybe you'll create something funky that's been in your brain and just bring it to life. Let's talk about use cases, though, in terms of XR, because that's, what are they? What are the key things? What are people doing? What do people want?
For sure. So I put a bunch of boring stuff in here as well as the reason we're actually here. I think we're all actually here to talk about lightsabers and cool stuff like that. But to give some validity to the fact that we actually do this as like a real part of our job, I put a couple examples here. And so this is, and we've never really shown this off publicly ever, to be honest. But this is one of the controllers that we created for the electrical industry, specifically around controlling scissor lifts and boom lifts. And so we've been working with industry for a number of years to create interaction methods and custom controllers, custom interfaces for taking really mundane workflows and bringing them into a digital world scenario. And so if you came to my talk last year, I'll say the exact same thing as I did last time, is I'm here to be the boring guy in VR. I build these things. Now, to be fair, they're pretty cool. Industry wants to create these one-to-one representations of a control method, so you gotta have the same three-phase switches. You gotta have that $600 joystick. Like that one part is the actual joystick from from the scissor lift. That joystick alone cost as much as a Quest. So it's not the same mentality as when you're trying to figure out which headset to buy. It's like, all right, what part of it are we going to lean in on? And for the first, I want to say 9 years of my business, when we were building these kind of things and really started on the PC front, it was all about how can we map this button or this tactile feature to the digital experience. But what's really transformed over the last year and a bit is a much more robust look into the haptic side of things. So how do we feel those interactions? So we go ahead and progress. So this is the same exact controller in a digital environment. So this is a screenshot from Aerial Work Platform. So you can see the digital controller is basically a digital twin of the physical controller. So all of the switches are one-to-one mapped. The E-stops, you'll notice they're both there for the various methods of this controller. The controllers or the joysticks are one-to-one. One thing that this controller doesn't do anything about, though, is if you are, it seriously fails because hand tracking wasn't really there yet. We could have made it work with a Leap Motion 1, but we didn't have the options yet. Vive hadn't launched their hand tracking functionality as part of the headsets yet, since this was launched on the original Vive, eventually ported over to the Vive Pro. But we don't have any way to simulate the rumble of an engine or the feeling of going over a bump or stuff along those lines. So progress again. In order to address that in the next experience, which was regarding welding simulations, and I've had a few different conversations about welding over the last several hours. This particular experience is one of our welding sims, and it was originally handed to me in a state where it was using a DK2 with a Leap Motion to track. We ended up upgrading that to work with what we called the modern headsets at the time. It worked with Vives and Rift CV1s, I believe. And in order to track it, we ended up just going to Princess Auto and buying just a MIG welder, cutting the end off of it, and gluing a Vive tracker to it. And to echo some of the stuff that Dario talked about earlier today, that was back in the days of when you could make a cube spin. People were like, holy, come talk at our conference. And so, we put a Vive tracker on a piece of of broken equipment and made it the controller for this. But eventually we did end up adding some haptics to that, and it really kicked off the conversation on the enterprise side of it's important to feel what you're learning in.
So speaking of kind of like solutions, so Dan's company builds solutions so that it's very specific to what you're working on. These are some of the industry solutions in terms of haptics. So you've got things from tons of gloves. Obviously, gloves are amazing for things like training. So if you're, say, training pilots, you need to feel switches. If you're a doctor, you need tools that can actually feel like you're piercing skin. So haptics in these kind of use cases, whether it's industry training, all of these kind of important places, haptics are critical for giving it that realistic kind of feel. And realistic, of course, is subjective to what you're trying to accomplish, what your use case is, but these are some of the industry tools from literally, $5 to $50,000. So these are kind of like the heavy hitter things that you need to purchase as an industry, like corporate account, essentially. You have to get a huge credit card to be able to use these for your technologies, but this is kind of like the state of haptics in XR currently.
The striker guns are really cool.
That one's good for, obviously, military training. It's just like some quick facts of, I think if you've used haptics in VR before, which you probably have, you know that it does increase the experience. Without haptics, it feels super weird. If you use it like the Apple Vision Pro, you're just kind of grasping at thin air, you're pinching the air, and there's just a missing element. And I think haptics just encourages user behavior. It's all about just making the experience better for the user. And there's tests that show how it increases this. And I think that's something to keep in mind for when you're building, that haptics isn't just this cute buzzing feeling, like love a buzz of your smartphone or of a controller, but it's about actually bringing something into a use case, like the examples Dan provided, that makes it feel realistic. So they really get in the mindset of, hey, I'm actually in this, this rig. I'm actually doing this experience, and I'm treating it with utmost respect and reality.
I think one of the, just from my perspective as a service provider, regarding to haptics, we know that they're doing their absolute best when you don't even realize that they're happening, which is kind of probably the most difficult part, and I can't speak for Ash, but probably the most difficult part of marketing is like the best haptic experiences are the ones you're not even thinking about. And so that translates perfectly into a lot of the boring stuff that I work on. The welding gun feels like it's correct, but if you are from that world, you just think it feels normal. You're not really putting any thought into that unless you're really critically thinking about that workflow.
Yeah, exactly, well said. It's definitely an art and a science. But you're here because we have a saber, and I think that's what the most exciting part about this is. And it's a project that Dan and I worked on together. It started with a lightsaber. We're not allowed to call it a lightsaber, so we call it either a plasma blade. The Germans call it a Laserspeer. But this is the kind of the origin of us working together. Dan, you want to give a kind of...
Yeah, we're all fans of plasma blades, right?
Plasma blades?
We don't like lightsabers around here.
Yeah.
Plasma blades, all right. I go for the red ones immediately. If I had the Force, I would go straight to the dark side. Or whatever the off-brand version of that is. We won't be able to play any of the GIFs or videos that I would have normally put in here, so I'm just going to talk as if you can see it. So this is... do you want me to control this for this part? Because I might fly around a little bit. Yep. This is interesting because around Christmas time, Titan Haptics reached out to BSD XR and said, "Hey, you like plasma blades?" And I said, "I've never heard of a lightsaber, but definitely a plasma blade." And I was asked, can we revive an old tweet I'd sent a while back where we had taken a 3D printed blade and attached a Vive tracker to it as a proof of concept. This was around the same time that the Vive trackers were originally coming out, and it was between that and a joke where I had put my Vive tracker on a cup of beer, and I was using that to find my beer while I was developing. And it was well received, but I never did anything with it. And so last year we were playing with the NeoPixel version of the what was it, the Plasma Spiel or whatever? Laser Spiel. We decided, why don't we try and bring this into VR? And that turned out to be a lot more challenging than originally expected. So this is kind of where the state of the game right now. You are welcome to come upstairs and try it. So that's way more fun than watching a video of it. But basically the state of the game right now is it's a mixed reality experience. Robots are in the space with you. And you leverage literally this controller right here to combat them. And so in order to make this work at all, we had to figure out how do you track a custom object in a Meta Quest, which is not possible. And so we worked our way around that by leveraging hand tracking to track the position of the user's hand and then correlate that to where the blade's at. So what you would have seen in this amazingly well-produced video from my mixed reality studio would have been me doing exactly that. In order for this to be a fun experience, though, we wanted to design assets that were, we'll say, original. This is a very original idea. No one's ever thought of a plasma blade before. But in order to make this a reality, we started with the mentality of, well, we're already working with programs like the Met School program, the P-Tech program, and various other programs in Manitoba where students that are in the high school system are learning about game development, learning about 3D modeling and stuff along those lines. And this became the perfect project to get students interested in working with Unity, working with haptics, whether they're coming through the electrical engineering program, coming through the game dev program, stuff like that. This became a really good catch-all for those kind of interactions. And so we started creating original art for every piece of this. At the beginning, though, the very first version of this was simply a demo that I had a week to work on for CES. So I think it was like the day, it was like, it was Festivus. It was like the day before Christmas Eve. And I was asked, can I build a lightsaber for CES? And immediately I said yes. And then I asked when it was. It was like 9 days from then. It's like, you got it, let's do it. And so we created a VR version, which really all it did was track the object, and there wasn't really much else to it. But we realized that that was fun, and so we decided to keep going with it. So we created enemies, we created lightsabers, and again, all very original ideas, all built working with various students that are now, some of them employed at BSD XR, and some of which have moved on to other studios upon graduation. Again, another video that you won't be able to see about the amazing strides that we've made on mixed reality on this project. Again, the current state has robots like this. So the other robots are a lot cooler. The original version of the experience, and this is all developed in Unity, leveraged some off-the-shelf assets that were from the asset store, which just to get the project moving along quickly. One of the things that we decided, though, during this process, when we started moving towards mixed reality and the process of creating all 3D assets, is we decided, well, let's just open source the whole thing. None of this is a product that is going to ultimately be something that we sell. At the end of the day, this is a good example of how we can use haptics in an experience using mixed reality or VR that could easily translate into like how to use a drill or how to use a saw or something along those lines. However, it's just more fun because everyone loves plasma blades. And so, you know, as soon as I was asked how to build this thing, this is the first picture I think I sent back to Ashley and the Titan crew, and I was like, you got it, say no more, here's your lightsaber. And this did work. This was the 3D printed hilt. It's based off of Luke Skywalker's blade from Return of the Jedi that I 3D printed, nothing to do with this project. I just have been 3D printing lightsabers for no reason for, I guess, as long as I've been in business. And I ended up Velcroing this battery pack to it, which just happened to work. Now, that battery pack will power the Titan Haptics dev kit probably for a year. That's way too much battery. The new version that you see here, which is we call the V2, is powered by an off-the-shelf vape battery. So you can go to any vape shop, you can get a vape battery off of Amazon, something along those lines. And you don't need like a bulky pack like that, but you can see the Titan Haptics dev kit at the bottom. And there are versions of that up at the booth if you're interested in haptics and taking a look at those dev kits. But I don't know if this prototype instilled confidence or not, but it was the start of what we were going to ultimately build. Following CES, we ended up deciding, well, we better actually put some thought into this thing. And I think you can probably literally see, like you can see it's Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber. But we cut the end of the hilt off so that no one would know that our plasma blade was based off of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Stop giving away our secrets.
And ultimately designed all the way out in Fusion 360. Now, all of these files are already available for download. So if you want to create your own saber, all of the files as well as the schematics on how to build this are already available. The game as well is on SideQuest. Now that's the old version of the game. Post this conference, the game will be updated on SideQuest and the entire thing will be available on GitHub as well. So as we continued to iterate on those designs, and this exact version, this is V1, so the other one was not even it was like pre-alpha. You see here, I got like lots of stuff. Pay special attention to the fact that I literally have a parking ticket on my table here. This is just like never moved my truck from the road. But we just started iterating on all the different parts that would go into this, trying to keep it to 4. I didn't want it to go more than that. You got a button, you got some wire, you got a dev kit, and you got a 3D printed hilt. Anything more than that starts to feel like you need a shopping list, and it starts to become cumbersome for someone to want to get into building their own lightsaber. Plasma blade, sorry. And so, like, at this point, like, the major design flaw was really that switch at the top. Like, everyone immediately was like, I'm gonna flick this off. It's like, great, here's your plasma blade, they just turned it off. And that ultimately became this mess of a space station with the blade in hand there. I think it was well received.
Yeah.
It was well received. It's a lot more fun today than it was. But the actual process was very collaborative. So BSD XR isn't a huge team. We're very collaborative, but we're not like massive. We're not like a 1,000-person company or even a 500-person company. There's like 40 of us. So we're not like this big entity. But our engineering team is especially tiny. And during the process of this, our team worked really closely with the Titan Haptics team to make sure that we were leveraging the dev kit to its full capacity, that we were utilizing all of the available GPIO, making sure that we're providing the correct power, all those kind of things, so that we could focus on building the actual experience side and then building that trajectory to get this all working.
Yeah, 2 key learnings from that, I would say, is that don't be afraid to ask. I think sometimes a team, especially someone younger, is afraid to ask for help or to get feedback, so always do that. And the second one is just like, have fun tinkering with it. And I think one of our goals is to provide better instructions, provide better tutorials, so that someone who's leveraging your technology can just use it really simply. I think if you're so stuck in doing your own thing and you're so used to being, the expert of it, you forget that other people just aren't quite as well versed as you. And that was definitely a learning curve on this one.
I skipped the last 2 slides because they were just videos, but the crux of it is just come play the thing. Like, it makes a lot of sense to see the video if like you don't want to come up to the expo hall. I'm judging you if you don't come and play it, because it's easily the coolest thing up there. But at the end of the day, I think the power of what we can create with these types of experiences is that we can come together as a community and build something that matters. And so the reason that we went with open source mentality with this project is not a lot of people are creating custom haptic experiences or custom peripherals. Like, there are definitely people interested in it, but it is a small niche of this market. The groups that I've worked with in the past that are working in that space either are all in on custom peripherals or they're just dabbling. There are very few studios that are actually creating experiences that leverage those. Now, it doesn't help that OpenXR doesn't properly have standardization for haptics to the degree that we would like, and it also doesn't help that there isn't a consistent HDK for controllers that exists in this market, but this can be the start of our momentum towards those things. And so everything involving the haptics kit, with the exception of the proprietary technology of Titan, is completely open source, meaning that you'll get all the fusion files so you can adapt the blade, all of the STL files if you want to 3D print it as is, access to the Unity code base. I have largely transitioned my team towards open source tools like Godot. However, for the sake of everyone involved, this is still a project on Unity. Whether you love it or hate it, at least you probably know it. And to be fair, the Unity compiled version of it's not really open source, I guess, because none of us get that. But at the end of the day, we as a community can come together to create better versions of this and bring more options towards bringing those kinds of interactions to the experiences that we create. As the headsets are moving towards more of a hand tracking first approach, when we're working with our clients or we're working with experiences, we're creating things. So whether that's like a cultural experience or an enterprise training experience or an education experience, the fact that we're losing controllers to a degree for things like AVP, the Lynx, various other headsets are all controllerless. It makes it more and more important that on the education side, that if I have to interface with a piece of equipment or if I have to interface with machinery or something like that, I need that tactile piece. And right now there is no easy pathway towards that. There's no consistent rallying point towards haptics from an open source perspective. This gives us transparency in code because we can review each other's code. We can also collaboratively work on this project moving forward, and you can all make your own version of it. You don't need to just use Dan's lightsaber. You can go and create your own. You can't use plasma blade because that's mine. Maybe call it a lightsaber or something. But that gives us the power to really work together on that front. Yeah, transparency in code. I just started talking. There you go.
No, it's perfect. I think we've covered quite a bit. I want to actually just get to making sure that if you're interested in getting involved, that you can scan this and of course like go check it out. Like to us, this is a XR lightsaber, but you can imagine this for anything that you're working on. Like you need a hammer, make that realistic in VR, a chainsaw, whatever happens.
Drumsticks.
Drumsticks. Hell yeah, let's go. Anything that you want to bring to life, you don't have to rely on a controller as a form factor. You can actually be pretty scrappy at bringing something like this into your experience so that your customers, your friends feel like they're within that space and they're feeling the vision and the dream that you initially wanted to create, which is super critical.
Yeah, so this code will take you to a blog post that I published about this project when we were heading into CES. I'm updating that existing blog post with more information. This code is also at our booth upstairs, or you can just literally ask me on LinkedIn. I'll send it to you. Or ask me on Twitter. I'll answer you in a week. I don't go on there as much.
Good caveat.
We got 13 seconds. Oh, it's going up.
No, it's going up.
It's going up. Never mind. I thought we were out of time, and now the time's going up.
So no key takeaways.
All right.
Cool. So key takeaways, we'll just do really quick and then I think we can answer any questions. Key takeaways is you can accomplish this through really expensive peripherals. If you've got a huge budget, you can buy badass haptic gloves that come with like a computer backpack and you can really have a super intuitive experience. Second, you can actually hire a company like BSD XR who can actually build out a concept from nothing into reality and something that can scale. And the third is you can basically just do it yourself.
We'll do questions upstairs, friends.